Today we have a special offering. Those of you that follow us on YouTube or on our website know that Aararat Consulting, we're an organization that is corporate training, and a big part of our training is to help when workforces have angst or when people aren't getting along, which is pretty universal in the Western work world. And our job is to help people synergize or help people work together or help people reduce their stress. But the biggest cause of stress and the biggest cause of angst in any human dynamic, workforce or otherwise, is miscommunication. So when Aararat Consulting does corporate training, we always start off with communication exercises. And today we have a very special offering, because today's offering is not for the corporate world. Today's offering is specifically for the millennials. And if you know anything about Aararat Consulting, you know that a lot of our training has to do with intergenerational angst, specifically between those who are in power and authority, which is primarily the older generation, my generation, the baby boomers, and the newest generation in the workforce, which is the millennials. And there's been a lot said about the millennials, but if you've seen any of our videos, you'll know that Aararat Consulting looks at things from a psychological point of view and a sociological point of view, and we're very sympathetic to the millennials, because a lot of the sociological behavioral traits that millennials exhibit are because of influences or etiological roots that actually come from their parents, my generation, the baby boomers. When we look at things holistically and globally, when we step back and don't try to focus with blinders on at one thing in isolation, then when we look at things more globally, then we're all going to be a little bit more sympathetic to millennials, because some of the traits that people complain about aren't the millennials' fault. It's just the way that they've been raised, and it's part of their sociological conditioning. But today we want to talk specifically to millennials, and that's why in this video it says, millennials, are you listening? And the key word is listening, because in the debate, that if you haven't seen this debate yet, it's between Dr. Jordan Peterson, he's a clinical psychologist and he's a psychology professor at the University of Toronto, and Kathy Newman, who's a BBC broadcaster or interviewer. So on Channel 4 on January 18th, there was this amazing interview, and the reason it's amazing is because of how dysfunctional the communication is. So millennials, I hope you're listening, because if you want to get promoted in the workforce, if you want to advance, then you need to be able to communicate the value that you bring to the workforce. But if you can't communicate properly, then people won't be able to appreciate everything you've got to contribute. So we're going to start by communicating the word appreciation. Appreciation is not gratitude. Appreciation is to recognize something, to know something, to understand something, and then to affix a value to something. So for you millennials, if you want your supervisors, your bosses, your foremen or forewomen, or smaller companies, if you get to rub shoulders with the president or CEO, if you want those people who have the authority to promote you, if you want them to appreciate you, then they're going to have to be able to recognize what you contribute. They're going to have to be able to understand what you contribute. They're going to have to know for a fact that you are contributing, and then they will affix a value to it and you will get promoted. And wouldn't that be great? Okay, it would be great as long as you can communicate. So when Aararat Consulting does corporate training programs, I have to tell you, it's not just about the younger people that can't communicate. It's about everybody can't communicate, because we've yet to do a corporate training program when the executives haven't said, wow, that was so insightful and that was so educational. Wow, I never realized that my communication skills were actually kind of sucky, if you really want to call it that. But you helped me realize that if I in management cannot communicate directions, then how are the people I'm managing supposed to follow them? And that's a good epiphany for anyone in management to have. But it's bilateral, because those people that are supposed to take instructions from management need to be able to understand what management's saying, and it's not always management's fault for miscommunication. So today, we're going to talk about 4 different aspects of communication, and what we're going to use is we're going to use the interview between Dr. Peterson and Kathy Newman. If you haven't seen this, you just got to watch it. It's 30 minutes long, but it is so worth it as far as dysfunctional communication is concerned, and there'll be a link to it at the end of the video. So let's get on to these 4 points or these 4 aspects of communication. And please remember, when we say that people don't communicate well, Aararat Consulting, we are convicted from our research. It doesn't matter what your age is. It doesn't matter what your educational background is. It doesn't matter what position of authority you're in. It doesn't matter what your cultural or ethnic background is. Everybody could use a little bit of help with communication. Okay, so millennials, if you want to be successful in a job and if you want to get promoted, then you'd be wise to take certain steps to improve your communication skills, and this is what this video is all about. You want to be able to communicate to those who have the power to promote you. So, how are we going to communicate? We're going to communicate in such a way that we are being understood. And by the way, when you take instruction from those who have the power to promote you, you want to make sure that you understand what they're communicating to you. So this is the definition that we like to use at the Aararat. It's communication is to understand and be understood. So the key to communication is actually comprehension. In other words, you have to ensure that you are understanding what somebody's saying, and you have to ensure that you are being understood by whoever it is you're communicating with, especially those in a position of authority who have the power to promote you. So there's 2 reasons that people won't necessarily understand each other. The first reason is it's because you didn't hear them correctly. And as simple as that sounds, if you don't hear somebody correctly, you're going to misunderstand what their instructions are. So the easiest way to ensure that you understand what instructions are from those people who are in a position of authority, the easiest way for you to ensure that you understand what they're saying is to repeat back the instructions. I know it sounds simple, but trust me, so many people have difficulty with this. If someone gives me some instruction, I'm going to repeat it back. When I repeat it back, I effectively make the words first and foremost here in my frontal cortex so that I'm cognitively thinking about what the instructions are. Otherwise, if I don't speak it out loud, then there's a chance that the message is gonna get watered down as I catch the gist of it, because I'm just thinking it, I'm not speaking it. Let me repeat that. If you repeat something back, you put it in the forefront of your brain. You have to be cognitive of what it is you're going to do next, because when you speak it out loud, it actually makes you concentrate on it. So we teach people repeat instructions back. When you repeat something back, what if you repeat it back incorrectly? Here's the next step. If you're given some instruction and the instruction's fairly clear, the instruction might be this: Jillian, please get the Harrison report off the top of my desk and give it to Jane. Well, it's fairly simple. You want the Harrison report, it's on the top of the desk of your supervisor, and your supervisor wants you to give that report to Jane. But all you have to do is repeat that back. You bet, boss, you want me to grab the Harrison report, it's on top of your desk, and give it to Jane. The boss is going to say, yes, exactly, and you'll do it. Wonderful. But what if the instruction that you're given isn't quite so clear, isn't quite so definitive, isn't quite so succinctly communicated? I can tell you what used to happen when I was a kid. My dad used to say stuff to me like, get the thingamajig over there. Say what? Get the thingamajig over there. Well, I'd always be in a panic because I wanted to please my dad, because I'm, a young little kid and I'm trying to help my dad out. I get to do stuff with my dad, but I have no idea what a thingamajig is. And now I go into paralysis. So I'll just grab something because I don't want to disappoint him and I don't want to look stupid. But I grabbed the thingamabob, not the thingamajig. And I got it over here, not over there. And then my dad would get frustrated with me. See, if you're not sure what somebody's saying, ask probing questions to gain understanding. So, I'm sorry, Dad, the thingamajig, which one's the thingamajig and where's over there? The reason that young people don't ask these questions is because they don't want to look stupid. But if they don't ask the probing questions and they follow the instructions incorrectly, they're going to look stupid anyway. So I can tell you, as somebody in a position of authority, I own the company, anytime one of my associates asks me to qualify or quantify or clarify instructions, I'm always pleased with them. Because if they don't understand what I'm saying, that's my fault, not theirs. And most people in management will not be insulted if you repeat something back. And they won't be insulted if you ask probing questions to gain understanding. So there's the tip. If you want to get promoted on the job, make sure that you understand what someone's saying to you. And then when you respond to them, respond in full sentences so they can understand back. That's communication, to understand and be understood. And if it was as simple as that, then there would be no angst between baby boomers and millennials, or between any generation. But it's not as simple as that. And here's why. Because the biggest reason that there's miscommunication is because one or more parties aren't listening. And in our next section, millennials, we're going to ask you, are you listening?